of information to you based upon an ever-evolving way to mine data and then gauge its what we call character. Right? Every data has a personality. It was just straight data. Oh no, some of it has got a very bad personality and some of it's got a very good personality. What's a good personality? The way you buy things. Imagine you just came out of a restaurant and swiped your credit card. And then all of a sudden, because of your proximity, based on the GPS location of your phone, you get an email because you gave it to one of the various credit card companies for targeted marketing research to get $5 off the coupon of the movie theater down the street. It's being done right now. Okay? So that's an example of software light, analytics heavy. And we're going to actually talk about some of the things in the intelligence community. Finally, modeling and analytic services. We all understand that, right? Regression analysis, hidden Markov models, right? We talk about that every day. Well, there's several hundred models that the scientists I work with use to determine what's the best way to gauge the character of the data. We use some of the regression analysis. We've learned that a lot in school. But there's also other models. Some too complex I don't even want to get into. So I've kind of started to talk a little bit about how you find fraud today. And again, it's the old spaghetti rules, which now today are enhanced through what we call a signal stack. And you have a library of signals, geographic location, type of buying habits. We have a saying called twinning. So you and another person like to go to Stop and Shop and buy similar items. You're twins. You don't know it, but you're twins. So based on the number of items that you have in common, you will start to receive ads of the other person, what they've purchased. So if they like pizza, and they also like grape juice and bread, and you like 3 other items plus grape juice and bread, you'll expect to see a pizza coupon. That's twinning. That's a very basic form. But yes, today, this is the kind of considerations people are doing, are thinking about. Okay. Finally, sense making, right? We should make sense. Well, not exactly in the intelligence community. One of the public discussions in the intelligence community is how they missed the Arab Spring. How could we have not seen this? And the reasons are very simple. Because there was such a tremendous flood of information that the intelligence community didn't have the capability to analyze it all. And thus, there was information there, but there was too much data. So how do you take, again, that ocean and bring it down into a much more manageable area? And that, again, is context. So in some cases, it's sensing, taking what we call very noisy data, many different items. It sends you in a number of wild goose chases. And so I'd say, but wait a minute here. Who is the type of person, or what is the type of internet activity that is consistent with political views, with people gathering, with references to literature and material? Now you start to see how sensing comes about. It's precursor activities that would lead to another activity. Now, in the intelligence community, obviously, they like to really dig deep. And so they do have analysts who go, and they start to look at these various subtle relationships. We've all heard about sentiment analysis, right? And it's not the criticism your spouse gives you. Well, we are moving towards sentiment analysis. We hear about it a lot. But it's not something today that is still an easy task. It still requires, like I said, identifying signals and context. So we'll use Occupy Wall Street, right? Because When did we see this coming, and how do we predict people's movements? Well, the minute a large signal spike pops up, suddenly everybody gets around it and says, what does it mean? Well, it means there are people traveling from out of town. There are people who like to post blogs of their sentiment, their unhappiness with America's financial system. There are people who are going to the local models to buy sleeping bags. All of this is activity. And one of the ways, we've heard about Freakonomics. Well, is everybody familiar with what Freakonomics is? These disparate relationships that, when linked together, actually tell a very interesting story. So imagine predicting the foreclosure rate in a community based upon the West Nile virus. Anybody hear about this one? Okay. How does that happen? Higher cases prevalence of West Nile virus is contingent upon large presence of quantities of mosquitoes, right? They are the carriers. People who are getting ready to go into foreclosure do not open their pools. So if you have, particularly in the South, where many communities have pools, when they weren't open, they became a breeding ground for mosquitoes, who then came out from under the pool covers, or in some cases, the pool was open, and began to have a big party stinging people, which led to a higher incidence of birds being affected first, because birds spend more time outside in the outdoors than a human. So once you saw, and I will do questions in 1 second, and then based on the leading indicator of bird presence and mosquitoes caught in traps, that led to the prediction of West Nile virus. So if you see a lot of the West Nile virus cases in your area this summer, just remember, check your home values. Now, so you had the question. I'll take a couple of questions.
I guess also you look for pool cleaning companies having poor business in that situation.
Yeah, that. Actually, as we're talking about this, you're coming up with what we call another entity. Okay, I had to rethink the way I think as an investigator in life. This was not an easy task.
One other question, quickly.
Sure.
When you're looking at hard drives,
yeah,
how do you account for, let's say, if somebody changes part of the hard drive geometry, that you're not able to read or understand it? Well, how do you search for that?
Okay. I do have a computer forensics background. I can handle that much. Hard drive geometry. Give me the mic. Yep. Okay, no problem. Gotcha. Well, could you repeat the question again? I'm sorry.
What happens if
somebody... 1 second.
Hold on.
Where are we? In the back?
Right here.
Sorry, I got to walk over wires and everything else.
Good. What happens if somebody changes part of the geometry on their hard drive? That it basically makes it unreadable for you.
Okay. Unreadable to an existing system, correct? Let's say, for example, we're using one of our forensics toolkits, and suddenly, a perfect example is Heartland, right? Because Heartland, the compromise occurred in what we call the interleaves of the server. So that's why the first forensics company came down there, which, by the way, that is so rare. Okay, that's a very rare event. But if you're doing your forensics 101, what are you monitoring? Outgoing traffic. Because wherever it's located, it still has to go through a port. So that's the whole reason why you don't shut down the machine. You stick your sniffer on there and start gathering up packets. So back to your point about hard drive geometry changes. What I like to do is I like to deploy several tools first to understand to confirm the composition of the hard drive. Do we have a couple of retentives out there who agree with me? Right? Check more than once. Exactly, right? And I bet you found a couple of hidden partitions. Come on, admit it. Come on, Greg. Absolutely. See, and here's a good example. Sir, you have a question? Yeah. Oh, did that answer your question?
Yeah, that was good enough. Thanks.
Okay.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
You may speak.
I was going to wait for Joe to.
Oh,
All right.
hang on a second. See,